Thank you, Pastor Clark, for joining us today and helping us to understand this important topic. We appreciate everything your organization is doing to come alongside individuals and families. Um, First off, can you tell me a little bit about what your organization does?
Well, Grace Centers of Hope originally was the old Pontiac Rescue Mission. We are the oldest, largest homeless shelter in Oakland County. Served 155,000 meals last year, gave over 55,000 nights of stay. We have a one-year life skills program here for men and women. Have approximately 100 men, probably a little over 100 women, and 45 homeless children that call this place home. Our budget is $5.7 million a year. One of the unique things about Grace Centers is that we receive no government funding, no taxpayer dollars. Here it all comes from the private sector.
What kind of needs do you see in Oakland County?
Probably the greatest need, or with me, without doubt, the greatest need here in Oakland County and here at Grace Centers of Hope is with moms with their children. This year, in 2014, we've turned away over 8,000 mothers and children because we didn't have room. That number is growing. Last year, we turned away over 7,000 moms with their children because we didn't have room. It's the fastest growing area here in Oakland County, and I think probably across the United States, the great tragedy with moms with their children. And for the most part, we are one of the only shelters who take long-term mothers with their children. So that's the greatest need. I think the first 3 days of November, we turned away 177 moms and kids. We've got a waiting list of a little over 90 days to get in here. Some of our pregnant mothers have been waiting for 6-7 months to get in. Because what happens is, if our daycare is filled, we have no room for the children in our daycare, then the mom can't come. And even though we might have a bed for a single mother, the daycare is filled.
Right.
So this year we have just tremendous plans. Beginning January 1, I think many people know that we bought the old Clutch Cargo building, which was a nightclub, and it had been a nightclub for over 20-some years. God literally gave us that building. It was a miracle. One gentleman, one family bought that building for us and gave it to us. And beginning January 1, we're turning the old church building into a moms with their children. Well, we have room for 200 more moms and kids. We're also rehabbing our daycare, doubling the size of the daycare. So just a lot of wonderful things happening to enable us. Actually, it's been breaking my heart for maybe 3 years now that we just keep turning away mothers and children.
That's incredible.
Well, what we have here is you go through the one-year life skills program, which is Christ-centered, gospel-centered, and we make no apology for that. The issues that the people face who come to us can't be solved with a cold check from Washington. Can't be solved by welfare. They're heart issues. They're hurt issues. And most of the folks who come here are addicted to drugs and or alcohol. They have turned to the false God rather than the true and the living God to solve the issues of the heart. And so we proclaim the gospel here of Jesus Christ. And I liked your song. Because it's biblically based. He'll give rest to those who come to him and invites folks to come to him to ease their burden and their load. So transformation here of the heart is what's important. But we do have a one-year program, which is gospel-based. And they go through the one-year program. They graduate from the one-year program and move to our aftercare into Little Grace Village, which is a block away. Into our houses there. So gradually getting them back into the mainstream. They learn to pay rent, and they have jobs, and they're working. and they're also required to attend church. So I have a captive audience to some degree. But it's not just an addict church. It's a gospel church across the street here. We had a little over 600 people from all walks of life. The prostitute and the president of the bank attend our church, former prostitutes, former addicts hear the gospel. We had 14 people come to know Christ yesterday. It was an exciting, wonderful service. So we're on the move with the gospel of Christ changing people's lives.
Goodness.
I don't know whether I answered that question or not. Right?
That was good though. It's all right. What can people do to help partner with you both now and all year long?
It is so important because we don't receive government funding, which could be millions of dollars. We certainly qualify for government funding, and we do believe in the big G, but it's not big government passing out welfare checks. It's a big God who alone can change the heart, who's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. We certainly believe in people helping people, that God has ordained that. The church, God has ordained to be outside the walls. I think the church is God's community, like your own church. And Chuck Gatica, of course, has been here helping. I know your church is a great church that goes outside its own walls. And that's exactly what is to happen. I don't believe in catch and release. I believe that when God saves somebody, He saves them for the purpose of helping someone else, and usually puts them in a warm, friendly, gospel-centered church where they grow and become active. We couldn't do it without volunteers. Not everybody comes to Grace Gospel Fellowship, but thousands of people support Grace Centers of Hope in providing that $5.7 million, and then come here and adopt the houses. I think we're right at 105 pieces of property here in Pontiac, actually changing neighborhoods. Pontiac was a bankrupt city. When I came here 29 years ago, this city was boarded up. And I believe that Christ has turned this city upside down, and that Grace Gospel Fellowship and Grace Centers of Hope had a lot to do with that. In the book of Acts, you find out that the early church turned the city upside down. They were active. So we're out of bankruptcy. The economy here in Pontiac has changed tremendously. Saginaw Street was all boarded up when I came here. We had the Super Bowl here years ago, and they took some of the boards off the windows and made some little restaurants. As soon as Super Bowl was over, they boarded it back up, and so for years this was a bankrupt city. But God, through the gospel, has changed this city. I'll tell you an interesting story. 12 years ago, the local police raided Grace Centers of Hope. At that time, it was Pontiac Rescue Mission. Feeling like we were the cause of all the problems. We were the magnet that drew homeless drug addicts to this city. We're the first faith-based rescue mission ever to be raided by a local police department. At that time, though, in God's providence, we were changing our name from Pontiac Rescue Mission to Grace Centers of Hope, and we were wondering how we were going to get our name out there. Well, God took care of that. The police raided, and we made the headlines for weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah. President of the United States called. Lots of people got involved. And since then, a wonderful transformation has taken place. Pontiac and city officials, we're best friends. We hold hands now. The mayor is a champion here for Grace Centers of Hope. God literally turned this whole thing around. And I believe that because of our preaching the gospel and telling the gospel and continuing to reach out, even with the persecution that we experience, God's done great things and totally changed this city.
Yeah. Is there a bill that you support or some legislature that is pending or anything like that for increased funding or regulations that could help provide for our community's housing needs?
That's a difficult question in this sense for me to answer. I would put it this way, and I often say this, that it's not houses so much that we need.
Right.
There definitely is a homeless problem outside of addiction, but for the main part in this country, addiction to drugs and alcohol have brought homelessness with regard to most of the people we see here. That doesn't mean that there are not some people outside of that loop, but for the most part, I would say 99% of the people who come here are homeless because of drugs. And then with drugs and alcohol comes the problems of abuse. So our big thing primarily is this, that the church has fallen to sleep. And many of the social issues that we face, government cannot fix, but the church can with the gospel. And so it's my belief that the church ought to be actively rehabbing homes, taking over neighborhoods, and providing houses not only for those who are addicts and addicted and have lost their homes, but for those like yourself, your own family, right? Was at Haven, is that right?
That's correct.
Was at Haven, a wonderful organization that cares for usually abused mothers and children. So, but our primary goal here is to take over drug neighborhoods, to rehab houses, communities. We have a program where you have to put $3,000 down. You have to earn that, put $3,000 down on a house. The house is usually appraised at between $30,000 and $35,000. You actually get the house at 3% interest. You sign a land contract and we're the mortgage. You come to church at Grace Gospel and you grow and you become a homeowner and you also give back. We feel like we are the church on the main line, and we're not hiding behind the walls of a religious institution, but invading Satan's territory with the gospel, seeing people change and become productive citizens through the gospel of Christ. So there's not a lot of government here.
No, yeah.
At Grace Centers. I would, just last week a bill was passed though that I did support with regard to expunging felonies and misdemeanors that many people get in trouble through drugs and alcohol, get their life back, and then have a tremendous record. Well, I think the Senate just passed a bill where many of our people will be able to go with limited felonies and have all of that record expunged. It's kind of like forgiveness through the gospel of Christ. No condemnation to those that are in Christ. So I did support that bill because many people who get their life back have that past following them, and it haunts them on a daily basis with regard to finding work and opportunities.
Thank you so much for taking this time with me today. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the people who are interested and maybe not aware of this very important topic in our community?
Well, I would say to Christian people who may be viewing this that there is tremendous hope, that it's time for the church to awake from its slumbering. I would make perhaps a strong statement that our problem is not in Washington. It's not with the White House, it's with the Steeple House. The Steeple House has gone to sleep, and we have laid down our armor. And I think as we put on the full armor of God, get back in the business of not laying back, but invading Satan's territory, we can see great things happen in this nation and in our neighborhoods.